Welcome to Sterling Ridge Group. Today, we are going to be reviewing basic safety rules and practices to make sure that you can go home the same way you came to work. Thanks for choosing to work for Sterling Ridge, and we look forward to seeing you on the job site. In today's training, we will be reviewing 5 different topics related to safety. First, regulatory rights of all workers in Ontario. Next, we will be talking about the Internal Responsibility System, or IRS. Then we will review the Sterling Ridge Group company policies. Lastly, we will review what to do in case of an emergency and what your role is during an incident investigation. Let's start off with the Green Book, or the Occupational Health and Safety Act and Regulations. This act contains all the laws about health and safety in the workplace. It speaks about how employers are supposed to keep their workers safe and how workers need to follow the company and provincial safety rules. It covers the role of supervisors and what happens if workers aren't following the laws and rules. If you have questions about what's in and not in the Green Book, feel free to reach out to Sterling Ridge Group's Safety Department. Worker Safety and Insurance Board, or WSIB, is a government insurance company that covers you in case of injury or illness at work. It is important that you report any time you seek medical help from a healthcare practitioner. If you must go to a clinic or the hospital for something that happened at work, please let your supervisor know immediately so that we can ensure that we fill out the proper WSIB paperwork to make sure your coverage is taken care of in a timely manner. At Sterling Ridge, we are committed to early and safe return to work, and will always have modified duties that we can offer to ensure that you don't miss time at work. The Ministry of Labor requires all workers be trained on their rights in the Occupational Health and Safety Act, namely the right to know about hazards in the workplace, the right to participate in health and safety programs in the workplace, and the right to refuse unsafe work. All workers in Ontario must complete the Ministry of Labor 4-step training program, or its equivalent training. In the 4-step training, you will learn to get on board, get in the know, get involved, and get more help. The Ministry of Labor also administers the Employment Standards Act 2000, or ESA. This act covers all non-unionized employees in Ontario. It makes sure that employers take care of workers' payroll requirements for minimum wage, hours of work, vacation pay, and termination. It also gives workers prescribed rights to take various leave of absences. The Internal Responsibility System, or IRS as it is commonly referred to, is the foundation of a good health and safety management program. The Internal Responsibility System gives roles and responsibilities to all people that work for the company and for the employer or constructor on each job site or work location. Everyone plays a role in keeping each other safe, so workers are expected to report hazards to their supervisors, and supervisors are expected to address those hazards quickly. The Health and Safety Representative or Joint Health and Safety Committee are there to make sure that everyone is doing their job to address the hazards in the workplace. They audit the Internal Responsibility System through monthly workplace inspections and quarterly Joint Health and Safety Committee meetings. As long as everyone keeps doing their part, the wheels keep turning. But if one part of the system fails, business can quickly grind to a halt. Project managers' responsibilities include making sure workers work in compliance with the Occupational Health and Safety Act and regulations, ensuring that workers use prescribed protective equipment and/or devices, advise workers of potential and actual hazards, providing workers with written instructions as to the measures and procedures to be taken for protection of the worker, taking every reasonable precaution in the circumstances for the protection of workers. Managers and supervisors act on behalf of the employer and hence have the responsibility to meet the duties of the employer as specified in the Act for the work they direct. Each project manager is responsible for the health and safety on their project. They are required to inspect the project for hazards regularly, and they may discipline for serious safety infractions they observe or are made aware of. Every job site with 5 or more workers must have a supervisor on site or a lead hand to always supervise the work. This ensures that someone competent is always in charge of the worksite. to make sure that all workers are kept safe while working. As per the Ministry of Labor, if a supervisor leaves site and leaves an employee in charge, that person must be competent. Competency is based on knowledge, training, and experience. Sterling Ridge Group Incorporated considers the health and safety of all to be the base upon which all operations are set. It is Sterling Ridge Group's goal to perform all business operations in a safe and effective manner, which will not adversely affect staff, clients, the public, or the environment. Sterling Ridge Group, as an employer, will take all reasonable steps to emphasize that health and safety is everyone's responsibility. We will comply with all applicable occupational health and safety legal and other requirements such as Ontario's Occupational Health and Safety Act and all applicable regulations and accept these statutes as minimum standards. Sterling Ridge Group is committed to working jointly in consultation and cooperation with all workers in the development and implementation of our occupational health and safety management system. Sterling Ridge Group Senior Management and Management is committed to provide a healthy and safe work environment for all our employees, visitor, and subcontractors for the prevention of injuries and illnesses. Management recognizes that all workers have the right to work in a safe and healthy work environment. Management is also committed to providing a safe and healthy work environment that promotes the occupational health and safety of all workers. Senior management is committed to set and review occupational health and safety objectives and continual improvement of the occupational health and safety management system and occupational health and safety performance periodically, as required. When Sterling Ridge Group Inc. acts as a constructor, it will ensure that the measures and procedures prescribed by the Occupational Health and Safety Act and the regulations are carried out on the project. Superintendents and supervisors are responsible for the health and safety of workers under their supervision and will ensure that safe and healthy work conditions are maintained in the workplace. Superintendents will ensure that machinery and equipment are safe and that workers work in compliance with legislation and establish safe work practices and procedures. Superintendents will also notify workers of hazards they are aware of in the workplace and will take every precaution reasonable in the circumstance to protect a worker. Workers are responsible for working in a safe and healthy manner, working in compliance with legislation and establish safe work practices and procedures, reporting all substandard and/or unhealthy conditions, and intervening when such conditions occur. Each worker must use and wear all required equipment, protective devices, or clothing that Sterling Ridge Group Inc. requires. All subcontractors and visitors will work in accordance with all Sterling Ridge Group Inc. health and safety policies and program, and in compliance with occupational health and safety legal and other applicable requirements. Detailed health and safety responsibilities for workplace parties are outlined in the Health and Safety Program. Element 1. Section 1.1.2. Health and Safety Roles and Responsibilities for Workplace Parties. As the president of Sterling Ridge Group Inc., I fully support our health and safety management program, and I am fully committed to providing a safe work environment for all. Through open lines of communication and cooperation between all workplace parties, Sterling Ridge Group Inc. will achieve objectives of a workplace free of hazards, injury, and illness. Management will endeavor to ensure that our policy is communicated and understood by all personnel. This policy statement will be visibly posted in the workplace and reviewed at least annually by senior management and may be updated or changed as required. Records of review will be kept readily available at the main office. Sterling Ridge Group is committed to the prevention of workplace violence and harassment and promotes a violence and harassment-free workplace in which all parties work together to achieve mutual health and safety goals. Management recognizes that all workers have the right to work in a violence or harassment-free workplace. Any violence and/or harassment committed by or against any member of our workplace or the public will not be tolerated. This policy applies to all employees within this organization and will address workplace violence and harassment from all sources. Workers are prohibited to subject any person or persons to workplace violence and harassment or allow conditions that support workplace violence. As such, any worker who subjects a worker, supervisor, employee, customer, client, contractor, or member of the public to workplace violence and harassment may be subjected to disciplinary action, up to and including dismissal. Supervisors have a responsibility to act respectfully towards others and promote an environment that minimizes the risk of workplace violence and harassment, and explain this policy to all workers that they supervise or manage. Management will ensure that workers understand who to contact regarding concerns about the policy or reporting an incident. Workers have a responsibility to act respectfully towards others and to ensure their own personal safety in the event of workplace violence and harassment. It is in the best interest of all parties to treat people fairly. Commitment to a violence-free workplace is an integral part of the organization, from senior management to the workers. The purpose of the policy is to ensure that all individuals are aware of and understand that acts of workplace violence and harassment are considered a serious offense for which appropriate action will be taken. Those who are subjected to acts of workplace violence and harassment are encouraged to report incidents to the appropriate person so that complaints can be thoroughly investigated. Sterling Ridge Group is committed to investigating reported incidents and complaints of workplace violence and harassment in a fair and timely manner, taking the necessary action to respond to those events and providing support for complainants. Information about a complaint or incident will not be disclosed except to the extent necessary to protect workers, to investigate the complaint or incident, to take corrective action, or as otherwise required by law. A worker will not be penalized for reporting an incident or participating in a workplace violence or harassment investigation. This policy will be reviewed by senior management at least on an annual basis, and all records of the review will be retained. Sterling Ridge Group is committed to continuously finding new ways to reduce quantities of materials, emissions, and energy associated with our operations. Sterling Ridge Group is proud of its achievements, which demonstrate a firm and continued commitment to environmental excellence. The management of Sterling Ridge Group for all projects and services will integrate environment and people into our daily business practices. Use natural resources effectively to increase our operational efficiency and respect the needs of future generations. Employ environmentally safe construction and operations procedures and protocols that minimize emissions and prevent pollution. Meet or exceed applicable environmental regulations. Constantly look for opportunities to increase the net environmental benefit of our activities and use resources more efficiently. Only through the active participation of all employees can we ensure effective and efficient use of resources and environmental protection. Acceptance and support of this policy and associated program from all employees is essential. Sterling Ridge Group will provide training to all existing and new employees related to the substances, locations, and requirements of the positions to which they are assigned. The training can include but is not limited to the following items. Overview of Sterling Ridge Group's Waste Management Plan, Spill Response Plan, and Environmental Protection Program Guidelines. Workplace Hazardous Material Information System. Transportation of dangerous goods. Any wildlife or local habitat. Upon completion of your orientation, you will be added to Sterling Ridge's Human Resources software, called Bamboo. On there you will find all announcements, as well as the Employee Handbook, Health and Safety Manual, and various other pieces of information. The Health and Safety Manual will also be available on Site Docs. You must sign into Bamboo in order to notify your supervisor if you are unable to make it into work, or if you need to request vacation time. A link to the software will be sent to your personal email address you provided earlier with the Human Resources forms. You can also download the Bamboo app on the Google Play Store or the App Store from Apple. Monthly workplace inspections will be completed at all three of our office locations: Erie Sand and Gravel, Sterling Ridge Architectural System Incorporated, and the main office at Sterling Ridge Group, which includes the infrastructure, general contracting, and utilities divisions, as well as the shop and office. In addition to those inspections, weekly site inspections are completed by a member of the Health and Safety Department, as well as by the supervisor. Weekly safety talks, depending on the project requirements, will be completed by the supervisor on-site. A Health and Safety Department coordinator will conduct weekly safety talks as well. Every job site or project requires a field-level hazard assessment, otherwise known as a FLHA. The purpose of this document is to identify all hazards and identify controls to prevent these hazards from causing injury, illness, or accident. You should become familiar with these hazards and how to protect yourself and others from those hazards. Your supervisor will prepare and review the FLHA daily with you, and you will be required to sign off on it, showing that you are aware of the hazards for the job tasks required for that day. As you can see from the hierarchy of controls diagram on this slide, it is important to select the proper level of hazard control for the task at hand. For example, you wouldn't expect everyone on a job site to wear a respirator for asbestos if there was a way to isolate the area using engineering controls to limit the exposure. Our last choice of control from hazards is personal protective equipment, or PPE, since it's the least effective means of protection, but also the most difficult to enforce. This is what the paper copy of our FLHAs look like. This form is also available on SiteDocs for usage. There are many potential hazards listed, and it is important to review each section to ensure potential hazards are identified and communicated to all site personnel. Each section of the FLHA addresses specific hazards and controls. The activity risk column identifies what work is being done. The hazards risk column identifies the hazards associated with the work. The controls column identifies the measures that are put in place to protect the workers from the hazards. All site personnel must review the field-level hazard assessment daily before beginning work or accessing the site and must sign or initial this form. Your signature or initial indicates to your supervisor that you have read the content of the form and understand your role in working safely. While reviewing the FLHA, communicate your supervisor any questions or concerns you have related to the tasks that have not been identified within this document. You are obligated to report all known hazards to your supervisor immediately. Sterling Ridge Group recently implemented SiteDocs safety management software into our safety management practices. Some project safety documentation can be found on SiteDocs, including the daily field-level hazard assessment, training certifications, the Health and Safety Management Program, safety data sheets, the Act and regulations, safe work practices and procedures, toolbox talks, and much more. All workers are provided access upon completing this orientation and are expected to participate in completing required forms provided on SiteDocs. At Sterling Ridge, we take the rules seriously because they are there for everyone's protection. You are expected to always follow rules set out in the next 2 slides. You must wear the personal protective equipment required on the job site, use the proper workplace bathrooms or porta-johns, and you must always report your absences to your supervisor and through Bamboo. Prohibited behaviors include, but are not limited to drug and alcohol usage, theft or willful destruction of property, driving while using handheld devices, and last but not least, workplace violence, harassment and discrimination. Failure to follow the rules may lead to discipline, up to and including termination of employment. Standard company rules. These company rules apply to all Sterling Ridge Group Incorporated office, shop, yard projects or sites and all working employees, subcontractors, and visitors working on behalf of Sterling Ridge Group. All employees shall follow the Occupational Health and Safety Act, applicable regulations, as well as health and safety requirements enforced by Sterling Ridge Group Incorporated. All personnel, including visitors, must report to the office administrator before entering the office or site. Visitors must sign in and sign out at the reception upon arrival and when leaving the office or site. All injuries, accidents, incidents, and near misses, no matter how minor, must be reported immediately to your superintendent. Any form of harassment or violence will not be tolerated by Sterling Ridge Group Incorporated. An investigation will be conducted for all incidents of workplace violence and harassment. First aid treatment must be administered, recorded, and documented on the first aid log, and meet the requirements of Regulation 1101. Smoking is prohibited in the workplace as per the Smoke-Free Ontario Act and must be contained to designated areas. This includes and is not limited to tobacco products and vaping. Employees must not engage in any prank, contest, feat of strength, unnecessary running, or rough and boisterous conduct. The consumption of substances, drugs, alcohol, etc. by employees while on duty, including lunch and break periods, or on Sterling Ridge Group premises, is strictly prohibited. This also includes possessing, using, selling, or offering illegal drugs and other controlled substances while on duty or on the premises of the company. Waste material and debris must be removed from work and access areas on a regular basis or at least once daily. Material or equipment at the office or project shall be stored and moved in a manner that does not endanger a worker and shall be piled or stacked in a manner that prevents it from tipping, collapsing, or rolling. Work location and site-specific rules. These company rules apply to all Sterling Ridge Group projects or sites and all employees, subcontractors, and visitors working on our projects or sites. Fall protection equipment must be used when heights exceed 10 feet, 3 meters, or when fall hazards are present below. Working at heights is considered a high-risk activity. You must obey these rules or you will get hurt. While working with trenching and excavation, do not enter an unshored excavation. Do not pile excavated material close to the edge of an excavation. Never leave an open excavation unprotected from workers and the public. While performing hoisting and rigging, the crane operator must do a complete walk around the equipment to verify the safety of the crane and of the surrounding area, including overhead hazards. All controls must be tested by the crane operator prior to operating the equipment. Any malfunctions must be corrected or repaired before the hoisting or lifting operations can begin. Employees must operate equipment and machinery only when trained and authorized to do so. Riding on equipment is prohibited. Workers must report any defects in equipment, tools, and vehicles immediately to their superintendent so that it can be repaired or replaced. All equipment and machinery shall be inspected prior to start of work, and where applicable, complete and maintain an inspection log. Never move a load without a signaler when the intended path of travel is obstructed. Always operate equipment in accordance to manufacturer instructions and legislative requirements. Reversing vehicles and equipment on construction projects pose a serious problem for personnel on foot. Fatal accidents resulting from workers being backed over by dump trucks and other equipment occur all too frequently. Never operate vehicles or equipment in reverse without a signaler or spotter. Work location and site-specific rules. Continued. Never use handheld devices, such as cell phones or other electronic devices, while operating equipment, machinery, or vehicles. Limit the usage of such devices to only when on break or when it is permissible to do so. Inspect all ladders prior to every use to ensure structural integrity. When working above 3 meters, 10 feet, secure the ladder. The top of a straight or extension ladder should be secured to an independent anchorage to prevent lateral movement. Always face the ladder when climbing up or down. Always maintain 3-point contact and avoid reaching beyond the side rails of the ladder. Never overreach to get it something off to the side. Always reposition your ladder. Damaged or defective ladders must be removed from service immediately. Before manually lifting any object, assess the object and determine if assistance is needed. If any object is heavy, use any manual material handling device, such as a trolley, overhead crane, or forklift, or seek assistance from a coworker. All employees entering a project or site must wear the appropriate PPE, where applicable. Additional PPE must be worn as per the work or task performed. The PPE must be used in accordance with the standards recognized by legislation. Client and/or Sterling Ridge Group Incorporated. If you should notice any unsafe practices or conditions on the job, you must report the situation immediately to your superintendent so that corrective action can be taken. It is every worker's responsibility to perform his or her job in compliance with the Occupational Health and Safety Act, applicable regulations, and other legislative requirements, including the Sterling Ridge Group Incorporated Health and Safety Policy and Program. Furthermore, it is the Sterling Ridge Group Incorporated's responsibility to enforce this health and safety rules to the best of its ability. It is the superintendent's responsibility as the Sterling Ridge Group Inc.'s representative to provide corrective action deemed necessary to ensure compliance to this policy, including implementation of enforcement and corrective actions, where warranted. Any employee who willfully works in violation of the Sterling Ridge Group Inc.'s policies and procedures and/or legislated requirements will be subject to any of the following disciplinary actions. First offense, employee or worker will be given a documented verbal warning. Second offense, employee or worker will be given a written warning. Third offense, employee or worker employment may be terminated or suspended. This process is subject to your collective agreement, if applicable, and can be found in more detail in the Employee Handbook on Bamboo. The following acts of misconduct may result in immediate termination unless otherwise directed by senior management. Failure to rectify or notify superintendent of a hazardous situation. Failure to use required personal protective equipment. Unlawful harassment, violence, or discrimination. Possessing firearms and/or other weapons. Threatening physical harm with a weapon or using a weapon to physical harm another person. Theft, falsifying time records, or any other dishonest act. Sabotage or intentional damage to Sterling Ridge Group 8 property. Fighting or engaging in dangerous horseplay. Possession of or being under the influence of illegal drugs or alcohol while on or around the premises of our job sites, or the improper use of prescriptions or over-the-counter drugs while on or around the premises of our job sites. Any willful violation of health and safety policies and procedures or legislated requirements creating a potential for injury, death, or serious property damage. All records of disciplinary action will be kept on file and maintained at the main office. What does it mean to be fit for work or fit for duty? It means that you are physically and mentally able to complete all the tasks that you may be required to complete on the job site. For example, if you have injured yourself at home and come in to work unable to put your safety boots on, you are not fit for work. However, we will make every attempt to make accommodations to ensure that you can continue working safely, not being under the influence of drugs and/or alcohol at any time before or during your shift. You must have training, education, and experience to do your job. We use a lot of dangerous equipment at Sterling Ridge, and it is important to complete your equipment inspections thoroughly and consistently. If you see an issue, please make sure you enter it in Manager Plus on your daily inspection. We have staff in our maintenance shops that can fix most issues quickly. Do not use equipment that is unsafe. Immediately notify your supervisor of critical deficiencies and take the vehicle out of service. Most equipment has electronic inspection forms, so if you need access or training to fill those out, notify your supervisor immediately. Before operating any equipment, begin with a visual check of the equipment and work area. A thorough, documented visual inspection should take about 15 to 20 minutes. Walk around the equipment noting any wear or damage to tires, hoses, forks, attachments, guards, and so forth. Are there any loose or missing parts? Frayed or worn belts? Tires in good condition and properly inflated? Grease all required fittings. Before starting the vehicle, check the fluid levels including fuel, coolant, engine oil, hydraulic oil, and windshield wiper fluid. The battery condition should be charged and free of corrosion on terminals. At Sterling Ridge, we take pride in our equipment and believe that well-maintained equipment will make any job go smoother. Please take the time to do a proper inspection, remembering to grease all fittings, check tires, hoses, and fluid levels. Walk around the vehicle looking for fluid leaks. Make sure to note any changes from the last time you used that vehicle and to ensure there are no obstructions before moving it. Ensure that the horn works and the windows are clean. During spring and fall, it is especially important to check all compartments of the equipment or vehicle for evidence of animal nests. The Ontario Underground Infrastructure Notification System Act. An excavator operator duties regarding locates are that no excavator shall commence an excavation or dig unless A. It has contacted the utilities to request locates for all underground infrastructure that may be affected by the excavation or dig. B. Each member that owns or operates underground infrastructure that may be affected by an excavation or dig has properly provided locates for its affected underground infrastructure or has stated in writing that none of its underground infrastructure will be affected by the excavation or dig. And C. If locates are properly provided, the excavator has ensured that the locate markings on the ground do not conflict with the written information provided respecting the underground infrastructure. The foreman and every operator must have a copy of the locates in their hand or in equipment that has a bucket required for digging. Each work location has their own emergency preparedness procedures that will include emergency evacuation for inclement weather, fire or explosion, chemical spill, and violence. Each worksite will have unique gathering sites and expectations for evacuation and drills. Make sure that you get to know the correct emergency procedures for the site you are on, as it may save your life and the lives of your fellow workers. This information can be found on the safety board or in the safety binder. If you are unsure where to find this information, ask your supervisor. There are a lot of different chemicals used in the construction trade, so it is important that we protect our workers and the environment. Spill kits, fire extinguishers, and eye wash bottles can be found in company vehicles and in site trailers on larger job sites. Spill kits should be used to minimize the environmental impact, specifically on open waterways. In emergency situations, people often try to save the day at their own expense. So please, remember to make sure you are safe before trying to save someone else. Every employer and at each workplace must have their own emergency resources and at a minimum have a fire extinguisher. The type and number of fire extinguishers required differs based on location size, industry, and activities conducted at the workplace. Note for construction workplaces, one or more for a 40 BC fire extinguisher are required by legislation. Example, if there are multiple workers conducting hot work, fire extinguisher instructions. Pull safety pin from handle. Aim nozzle at base of the fire. Squeeze the trigger handle. Sweep from side to side. Watch for reflash, fire, or smoke. In the event of a minor fire, use the fire extinguisher. If clothing catches fire, stop, drop, and roll.
Pass method for putting out a fire. In this video, we'll teach you how to properly use a fire extinguisher using the pass method. When fire strikes at your workplace, be sure to follow these 3 steps. Step 1. Check to make sure the fire extinguisher you have on hand is the correct type of extinguisher to extinguish the type of fire. Type A is used for ordinary combustibles such as wood and paper. Type B extinguishers are used on flammable liquids like gasoline and oil. Type C is for electrical fire, so they can be used on faulty outlets and appliances. Type D is used on flammable metals such as magnesium and titanium. And Class K extinguishers are used when fires involve cooking media, fats, grease, and oils. All commercial cooking sites such as restaurants need this extinguisher. If you don't feel you can safely put out the fire, exit the building immediately. Step 2. With the extinguisher in hand, step 6 to 8 feet away from the fire. Step 3. Use the pass method to put out the fire. P. Pull the pin so that you're able to discharge the extinguisher. A. Aim the extinguisher nozzle at the base of the fire. S. Squeeze the lever to discharge the extinguishing agent. Releasing the lever will stop the discharge. S. Sweep. Pointing the extinguisher at the base of the fire, move the extinguisher from left to right or back and forth in a sweeping motion until the fire is out. When the fire is out, continue to watch the fire to ensure the fire does not ignite once again. If the fire comes back, repeat the pass method. Recap: P. Pull the pin. A. Aim. S. Squeeze. And S. Sweep. Remember, fires can be harmful and fatal, so do not put the fire out yourself unless it's safe to do so. At CQ Fire and Safety, we are a one-stop shop for your fire and safety needs, keeping business OSHA compliant and up to NFPA standards. For more info, visit www.cqfireandsafety.com.
Sterling Ridge works in many different areas of construction, industrial, and mining. Each division and job site has different chemicals that are used. The job-specific chemicals will have their safety data sheets on site docs. Your supervisor must identify the hazards of those chemicals you are using. If you have questions or concerns about the health impact of specific chemicals, ask your supervisor or contact the Health and Safety Department for more information. Remember, it is your right to know what you are working with. So make sure you ask questions and get the information you need to keep yourself safe. It is important to review the personal protective equipment requirements of each chemical you use to ensure you are protective yourself from harm.
Staying safe and healthy at work. It's your most important job. But when it comes to hazardous products, how do you know what's in your workplace? And If you use hazardous products, how do you protect yourself and those around you? And what do you do if an accident happens? Well, that's what the WHMIS 2015 program is all about. The Workplace Hazardous Materials Information System. It's there to make sure you get the answers and information you need to stay safe. But remember, these questions are the key. What is the hazard? How do I protect myself? What should I do if there's an accident? And how do I get more information? WHMIS 2015 will provide you with the answers to these questions. The manufacturer, distributor, or supplier of a product is responsible for product labeling and information. And your employer is responsible for educating you on the safe handling of hazardous products you use. So what are WHMIS labels? Each hazardous and you need to look for them and recognize the dangers they represent. Exploding bomb, for explosive or reactive hazards. Flame, for flammable products. Flame over circle, for oxidizing products. Gas cylinder, for gases under pressure. Corrosion, for corrosive hazards to metal, skin, and eyes. Skull and crossbones, can cause death or toxicity with exposure. Exclamation mark, may cause less serious health effects. Health hazard, may cause serious health effects such as cancer. Biohazardous, infectious materials and toxins that cause disease. Environment, may cause damage to the aquatic environment. This is optional in Canada. WHMIS labels must also include warnings and precautions for safe use. Your employer is responsible for making sure WHMIS labels have been applied to all hazardous products in your workplace. But WHMIS also demands that all suppliers and distributors provide a lot more information about their products via Safety Data Sheets, or SDS. These sheets provide all the information you need to know about the product to ensure your safety, and what to do in the event of an accident or emergency. These sheets must be readily available on the job site to all workers. Once your employer has made sure both labels and safety data sheets are in place, you must be trained on how the system works, including the safe use and handling of all the hazardous products in your workplace. So, those are the basic facts. But it all comes back to you asking the 4 questions. What is the hazard? How do I protect myself? What should I do if there is an accident? And how do I get more information? Because the most important thing is you going home safe at the end of each day.
In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to use an automated external defibrillator. In previous video clips, you've heard me mention an AED, or automated external defibrillator. Now I'm going to show you how to use one. These are wonderful machines which have made a huge difference in the recovery of cardiac arrest victims. Don't be nervous, it's really very easy to use. Research shows that more than 95% of cardiac arrest victims die before reaching the hospital. A victim's chances of survival are reduced by 7 to 10% with every minute that passes without CPR and defibrillation. Few attempts at resuscitation succeed after 10 minutes. Nearly 60% of all cardiac arrests are witnessed, so if an AED is nearby, there's a better chance for survival if timely defibrillation occurs. In cities where defibrillation is provided within 5 to 7 minutes, the survival rate from sudden cardiac arrest is as high as 30 to 45%. Other examples show survival rates as high as 86% in some cases. Step 1. Turn the AED on. Next, take the lid off. Pads, scissors, a razor, and gloves will be tucked inside the lid. The AED will then audibly prompt the rescuer.
Stay calm. Check responsiveness. Call for help. Attach defib pads to patient's bare chest. Don't touch patient. Analyze it. Shock advised. Press flashing shock button. Shock delivered. Start CPR.
So just listen and follow directions. The pads have a diagram on them indicating where to place them. But before you can do that, you will notice that scissors are provided to cut the victim's shirt off. If your AED doesn't have scissors, tear the buttons off the shirt. If the victim has a hairy chest, use the razor supplied with your AED to shave the area where the patch is to be applied. And if the victim is wet, use clothing or a towel to dry his or her chest. It's not necessary to be totally dry though. If the AED advises you that shock is advised, it's important not to touch the victim during the shock. It will loudly say,
Shock advised. Don't touch patient. Press flashing shock button.
Then push the red heart or electric bolt button once. The AED will prompt you by saying, Rhythm restored, or
Shock delivered. Start CPR.
After every 5 cycles, or about every 2 minutes, allow the AED to analyze the rhythm and continue CPR until the emergency medical team arrives.
As of June 1, 2023, under the Occupational Health and Safety Act, employers must provide naloxone if they are aware or should reasonably be aware of the following. A worker is at risk of an opioid overdose. The overdose risk exists in a workplace where they perform work for the employer. The risk is posed by a worker employed by the employer. If all 3 conditions apply, the employer must comply. If any condition is absent, compliance is not required. Under the Good Samaritan Act, 2001, workers who voluntarily administer naloxone in an emergency are generally protected from liability. Naloxone temporarily reverses opioid overdoses, but does not work on non-opioid drugs. Common opioids include morphine, heroin, oxycodone, fentanyl, codeine, and hydromorphone. While opioids are used for pain management, addiction and overdose remain significant risks. Training requirements. Employers required to provide naloxone kits must ensure that designated workers receive proper training ensuring that they can recognize opioid overdoses, know how to administer naloxone, and understanding related hazards. Employers can either provide in-house training, which requires years of experience in training and deploying naloxone, or use external training sources. What to do if you suspect an overdose? Check responsiveness and call 911. Shout their name, shake their shoulders. If unresponsive, call 911. Administer naloxone. Use either the nasal spray, 1 spray in 1 nostril, or injectable naloxone. Seek medical help even if symptoms improve. Nasal spray. Lay person on their back. Tilt head. Insert nozzle in nostril. Press plunger. Injection. Break ampoule. Draw liquid with syringe. Inject into muscle, in arm or thigh. Perform CPR. If comfortable, give 30 chest compressions and 2 rescue breaths. If no improvement after 2 to 3 minutes, repeat naloxone and CPR. stay with them. If breathing starts or you must leave, roll them onto their side with head tilted back. Monitor for confusion or withdrawal. Do not allow further drug use if possible. Employers must replace single-use items promptly after they've been used. Ensure kit items are not expired. Follow manufacturer's guidelines for storage and maintenance. Store at room temperature. Keep naloxone in the kit until required and protect from light. Each kit must include 1 hard case, 2 doses of naloxone nasal spray, 1 one-way rescue breathing barrier, and 1 pair of non-latex gloves. A near miss is an event that has a potential to but does not result in injury, illness, or damage. Report all near misses to the HSE department. Why is near miss reporting so critical? It is free learning and an opportunity to ensure it does not turn into an incident. Near miss reporting is the best way to prevent injuries and incidents. Reporting a near miss tells us that there is potential for an incident, but didn't happen that time. If near misses get ignored, they will eventually become an incident, injury, or worse. The better we get at reporting near misses, the less we will investigate serious incidents. Report all near misses directly to your supervisor. A property damage is any damage to equipment, tools, and/or work vehicles. All property damage or theft must be reported immediately to the Health and Safety Department. If a licensed vehicle on the road sustains or causes property damage, we need to file a police report. So please notify the Health and Safety Department immediately, so we can do up a full incident report for the police and our insurance company. An environmental spill is a spill of any amount that hits the ground. A worker must inform their supervisor that a spill has occurred. Freeze the scene, take pictures, apply Absorball, and wait for further instruction from the Health and Safety Department. Note, any communication with the Ministry of Environment must be done by the Health and Safety Department. If you spill any amount of chemical on the ground, please report to your supervisor immediately. Your supervisor will freeze the scene to gather information and will contact the Health and Safety Department. A first aid is an initial on-site emergency aid or treatment given to someone injured or suddenly ill, where in most cases no external off-site medical services are required. If other employees are in harm's way, suspend work and notify the supervisor immediately. Contact the HSE department for further direction and reporting requirements. An investigation will follow. Every job site at Sterling Ridge has first aid supplies and first aid trained workers. If you need first aid, contact your supervisor immediately. A medical aid is when an injured worker receives treatment by a medical professional. Injured employees cannot drive themselves to a clinic or hospital. Notify the Health and Safety Department. They will provide further direction and reporting requirements. An investigation will follow. If your injury requires more than just first aid, your supervisor will call a taxi or arrange for your transportation with a colleague to take you to and from the medical treatment facility, or dial 911 if your injury severity requires immediate medical treatment. You may need to attend the medical clinic or the emergency room at the hospital. Once you seek treatment or assessment from a medical professional like a doctor, chiropractor, physical therapist, etc., the safety department will need copies of the paperwork received from the medical professional. The forms needed from the medical professional are known as a Form 8 and Functional Abilities Form with the WSIB. As your employer, we will file paperwork with WSIB known as a Form 7. It is important that you inform the medical professional that you have modified duties available at work and that Sterling Ridge is committed to early and safe return to work. Please take a few moments to review this injury flowchart. It is important to note that if you require modified duties as stated by a medical professional, you must provide a copy of the Functional Ability Form to the Health and Safety Department. We cannot stress enough that Sterling Ridge Group is committed to your health and safety and will always do our best to accommodate for your medical restrictions. We often think of injury as something that requires medical treatment now, but 3 out of 4 workplace fatalities are caused by an occupational disease, like asbestosis. Occupational illnesses cause more work-related deaths than sudden injury fatalities do, so it is important to remember to report all injuries or illnesses in the workplace. We often fail to report not feeling well because we chalk it up to some other medical reason, or just believe that it will go away on its own. Some of these diseases have a latency period of up to 25 years before the full effects of the disease take place. Remember that if you are exposed to something in the workplace, report it immediately, so that we can complete an investigation in order to prevent further exposure to you and to other workers. This also highlights the importance of wearing required appropriate personal protective equipment, like hearing protection, to avoid negative effects later on, like hearing loss or tinnitus. Leading and lagging indicators are things we often discuss as a company, but it is important that every worker understands what is meant by these terms. A leading indicator is a proactive measure or something that is being measured without an injury or incident. A lagging indicator is a reactive measure because damage or harm has already been done. As we continue to improve our health and safety management system at Sterling Ridge, we will be utilizing more leading indicators to keep you safe every day. When in doubt, report. Sterling Ridge believes that a safe work environment is a productive one. If you see a hazard, you are obligated to say something. The Health and Safety Department is committed to assisting and advising all levels of the company on all related legislative acts and regulations as they pertain to your work sites. In order to be able to get positive, productive, applicable, thorough, and accurate assistance, the Health and Safety Department needs to be included in information ahead of time. This requires everyone to have open communication at the pre-start level, so we are able to anticipate your safety needs before you require them. We have dedicated, experienced, and knowledgeable staff in the Health and Safety Department that are there for your safety. Reach out directly to us to help answer any questions you have about your health and safety. Now that you have completed the training, you will need to answer a few questions to ensure you understand what you've learned. When you arrive for your first day of work, please remember to bring your driver's license or government-issued photo identification, your union or working card, if applicable, all training records, and a void check or banking information from your bank. Please scan this QR code with your smartphone or tablet and complete the quiz. Thank you for taking the time to complete this orientation. We hope you have a long and safe career with Sterling Ridge.